Welcome to a simple tutorial about installing Laravel under any machine. Now, I will be using Linux for this demonstration, so yeah, please note that it actually works on Windows as well, and probably on Mac. But yeah, for this demonstration I'll just be using this. Now, for the first thing you have to be using is getting Composer. Now, to get it, you can actually type Composer inside Google, and you will see a website here called getcompose.org. Now this website actually handles the dependency management. So as you can see, it have a download method under the terminal which you can actually use. Basically, you can actually install it for Windows. I'm sure that in the download page there was something to like a Windows installer somehow. But for this demonstration, I'll be using the. I'm not even gonna use this one. So because I'm under Arch Linux distribution, I'm going to be using the terminal to download this. Instead of typing what's in here, which you could use, obviously, it will work as well. I'm going to be using the Arch user repository, which is only available for Arch users. Now, this is done by typing yard, followed by the package name, which in our case is called Composer. Whoops, I mistyped that. Now, as you can see, it will list us the packages available for um, our system. Now, as you can see, it have a lot of Arch user repository stuff, but our stuff is called PHP's Composer. Now, this is what we need to install. As you can see, it's dependency management for PHP. Now, you simply have to press 1 now and type the password in here. It will proceed with the installation. I will not do it because it's already up to date, but you should install it with this method. Now I'm gonna cancel this, and we can proceed once you have this installed. Now the next thing to do is go to the Laravel website and try to go under documentation. It will automatically go through the installation. Now make sure your PHP dependencies are complete. You could check that, for instance, with PHP slash with PHP and the H variable, which will list all the information you can handle about it. Now, the best thing to check the PHP version is by typing a V here, which will leave us the version number of our PHP installation. Now, as you can see, is my PHP 7 version. Now, as you can see here, we need at least 5.5, so we are good to go. Now, I already enabled all these extensions, but they are mostly to come enabled by default, so don't really bother about them right now. Now, the next thing we have to do is install Laravel using different methods, as we already have the Composer installation here. We can use the global require, which will make sure that each time we want to create a Laravel project, we can use this Laravel command, but I'm not gonna do that. So the other way, or the easy way in my opinion, is using Composer create project. Now this is way more complete in my opinion. You can just copy this code, I guess, and go to the terminal. I will just clear that, and now navigate to the folder where you want to be installed. Now in my case it's called development and web development. Now this is where I have all my files listed. As you can see, there are currently 2 folders here. Now we do not need to create any folder for our project. It will be automatically created when downloaded. So the first thing we have to do here is simply paste our code and make sure to change the latest string here. As you can see, it's called blog. We simply have to change that to whatever folder name we want our project to be named. It's not like, it's just a folder name, nothing else. So I'm gonna type Laravel and press enter. Now this may take a while depending on your system and stuff, but it will actually install Laravel in your system, and once it's installed it will start with the dependencies. Now Laravel have a lot of dependencies, and that's why it's taking a bit, but once it gets like going on, it will start downloading every dependency to the latest update available for the Laravel installation we are currently working on. Now you can see the version here, but that's not really like, we just need to check out which is 5.2. So when we go up here, we're gonna be able to select the version we want to be working with, and we're gonna see all the documentation for that version. Now make sure that if you are installing a 4.2 installation, make sure to check this option, otherwise the documentation will not be the same. Obviously 5.1 and 5.2 are not the same, but yeah, it's not like the transition between 4 and 5. So basically, while this actually install, I'll be telling you guys that with the Composer installation, you are able to manage every dependency the way you want. Let's say you can add dependencies to your project, like different exceptions manager, like I know one which is called Whoops, which, as you can see here, it's PHP management for cool kids. Now, this is pretty cool when you have errors, because it says like, it's a pretty cool way of showing the error. Now, this was within Laravel 4 installation, it was coming by default, but since version 5 of Laravel, it's gone. So we basically need to practically install it again, but don't worry, because it's pretty easy. We can actually handle it using this composer command. But if you're not sure what to do, we can actually go to Google maybe, and just, as you can see, well, this is already downloading everything, as you can see here. It downloaded every dependency we needed for the Laravel installation to work. Now, once it actually downloaded everything, you can see that it generated base 64K for our application. Now, this K will be used for everything that handles encryption and hashing, so make sure not to change it while the application use. You can change it before, you can change it after, but I will not recommend doing it. Now, the first thing we have to do after a clean installation of Laravel is simply navigate to the folder where we installed it. So, in my case, I'm gonna go to Laravel. Whoops, that was not my installation folder. It was Laravel. Alright, now, once we are on Laravel, we can list the files, and you can see different files here. Now, I'm gonna clear that and list the files like that. As you can see, we may not see all the files here. To check them all, we simply have to specify all version here variable. So as you can see now, we have all the files in the current folder. Now we can note a file here called env. That's an environment variable file where we can actually put all our variables that we're gonna be using in our project in a global way. Let's say we can try editing it with the nano command, and you're gonna see, I'm gonna make this bigger, you're gonna see a list of variables here. You can see, for instance, the app environment, the debug, if it's on, off, your application key, which was set before, the application URL, and stuff like that. Now, the main things we're gonna be changing here is probably the database host, which is set by default to the local host. Now, the port is not important to change at that point. Now, we need to change the database which we will be working with. Now, to do this, actually, we need to make sure that we have a clean installation of MySQL, and so we can start adding our database stuff here. To check this, simply check the process if it's running or not. You obviously need to have MySQL installed in your system. In my case, to check if if MySQL is actually running, we need to type systemctl status and the process which is currently running. So in this case, it's MySQLD, and as you can see, it's actually active. Now this means MySQL is actually running. You may need to do this differently on other operation systems like Ubuntu maybe, which is called service status MySQL probably, or MySQLD, I don't know. Now, just make sure you know how to check if the process is actually running. So when we check the MySQL process, we're gonna be checking the same we did here with php_myadmin, which it's not currently running, as you can see here. Oh well, basically it's I don't have it installed, I think. But anyway, okay, that was dumb. I mean, it's not service actually. It's just a virtual host. But as you can see here, I actually got my HTTPD, which is actually the Apache server I got running. It's actually active. That means that if I go to my local host in the browser, I'm gonna be looking at all the information we got in the Apache folder. Now I got a simple PHP file here to check the version again, now the information. Now the whole point of this is that I created PHP my admin location here, where I can actually access all my stuff. Now if I got my SQL configured correctly, I'll be able to just enter it here and be able to see all the database and stuff. Now, to do this, simply you need to set up a password for MySQL, which you probably have to do while installing it, which in my case is obviously done. Now, as you can see, the process is currently running, and what we can do now is simply enter this information inside the terminal we had before. So here we go. We are on the database name, which we will probably use a simple Laravel database name. As the username, just set up your MySQL username and set up the password here. Now, you need to set up the mail driver and stuff like that if you want to work with email stuff. Otherwise, you will not be able to send any kind of email, which I will not use at that point. So simply set up the database information and we are good to go. Now we need to save this information, so simply save the file. And once we are done, we need to create our database here, which we set before. The name was Laravel, and we create it. Nothing else needs to be done. Simply the database needs to be created. Now, the way we have to work now is simple. Now we have our php_myadmin here, and we can go to our local host, but we still see no Laravel installation in here. Now the whole point is simpler than that. We do not need any kind of Apache server or anything to be running in order to check our Laravel application. I obviously have it set up because I like to access php_myadmin, although it's not necessary obviously. Now the whole thing it comes to life when you are able to see that the clean installation of Laravel comes with a file called artisan. Now this file actually handles a lot of things. Now the first thing we have to do is actually to migrate the database information. So simply type php artisan and then migrate. Now this will actually get all the tables inside the migrations folder and actually add them into the database. Now this means that if we go to our database again and we refresh the page, we will see that Laravel installation got 3 tables by default. Now one of these is actually the users table, which contains useful data such as name, email, password, and other important stuff. To actually roll back the migrations or simply delete them, you need to do a migrate refresh. That will actually migrate refresh. That will actually roll back all the migrations and then migrate them again. So in our case, we will stay the same way because no changes have been done. But let's try to actually migrate and roll back the migrations. Now as you can see, if we refresh the page, only the migrations table will remain. Now this table is obviously managed by Laravel because it actually takes care of what migrations are about to be migrated into the database. Now as our application is actually not migrated, we can edit the database information. To do this, simply go to the database folder followed by migrations, and as you can see by a clear list, you got two files here. One of them actually creates the user table and the other the password resets. Now we gotta be able to edit the first one, so that's the user table. That's actually PHP. We can easily manage the migration by just adding a simple, let's say a simple string here, which we can obviously use with a better editor in my case, so I'm not going to save that. And I'm simply going to go to our Atom, which is my predefined editor, and I'm going to go to Laravel installation here, database, migrations, and then as you can see there are the same two files here. I'm going to open the first one, which actually contains the database creation sim. So let's say I want to add a new column here. For example, the phone number of the person that obviously the user, you know. So the user, that was going to be an integer, and the name is going to be phone, for instance. And as you can see, if I save this file and I go back here, I try to migrate again. It's gonna give us an error. That's because we are not in the folder we were before. We have to migrate again. And as you can see, it's gonna migrate the two files again. But this time, if we go to our users table, in the structure, we're gonna see a new field called phone, which is gonna be an integer here. So as you can see, we can easily manage the application schema, so without even getting into the PHP my admin location. Now this can obviously be done in other ways, but Laravel actually handles this pretty good. So that's actually basics migration stuff you need to know. And by default, once the application is actually completed, you should be able to visit it. Now the way we have to do that is either getting the files we got before and adding them to our page location, but that's not gonna be necessary because Laravel got a clear way to create a simple development server. Now simply type php artisan serve and it's gonna create a server in your localhost. So as you can see, if I'm going to this path with this port, don't forget the port please. As you can see, if I type the port here, we're gonna see a clear Laravel 5 installation here. Now this is actually our files, so we can simply manage this. Now the whole thing comes to an end when you see that Laravel comes with an easy way of handling the authentication stuff. So to do that, simply go to the website where you were actually working on. I'm gonna go Laravel again, and as you can see, if you type php artisan and you actually type auth, sorry, it's make auth, you're gonna see that it's gonna create a bunch of stuff. This includes, in other ways, different BIOS for our server. That means that the application will change, and it actually includes the root files and a home controller. Now as you can see, if we go to our website again and we try to refresh it, the application will have been changed actually. But as you can see, it got a default login page and a default register page. Now this actually works, as you can see, because if I type my name and some information here, I'm gonna be able to register it here. And as you can see here, I got my username here. To see how this works, we can actually go to our users table and see that the user has been created now. Now please notice that it does not include all the fields in the register that we would like to have, so we will need to obviously to modify it to our needs. Now once this is complete, you have a simple working application under Laravel 5. Now this means that you can run anything you want in here, and you can edit it with your preferred editor, in my case Atom. But please notice a last thing I want to tell you is that if you actually modify the environment file, you will need to recreate the server. So remember this server that is actually running, it will need to be reloaded, because otherwise it will not load this file again. Now this doesn't happen in Apache server, but I noticed that it happens in the builded server. So simply just to make sure you reload the server and don't get mad. That's actually a simple basic installation of Laravel. Hope you like it, and see you soon.